Happy Sunday. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is officially game week. The team got a little practicing tonight. A little bit of some extra prep, I guess, with no game coming off of a quote kind of bias type week. And now it's go time. Tennessee is full steam ahead this Saturday. Home playoff game in the Horseshoe. I think it's going to be incredible. It's going to be one of the greatest environments in the history of the Horseshoe. Make sure you guys get there. I think it's going to be awesome, and I can't wait to check it out in the shoe on Saturday. It's going to be cold, but this is going to be a historical game, and I think your guys are going to be ready to rock. So, as always, we are going to get into the show. We're going to take your questions. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, we appreciate you guys joining us each and every night. Again, if you want to do something huge for us, please give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, along with Spotify. This is a major tilt for the guys, and we're going to get right into it with our good friend Nevadabuck. Nevadabuck, also shout out Dog Sun Poppy. If you guys tailed his action last night, you got 2 free winners in the UFC card, but it is officially game week. Obviously, they were practicing last week. They were prepping for Tennessee last week, but the real game week starts on Sunday. They usually come in, get some work, get a little workout in, get a little evening practice in, but Tennessee looms. I mean, we are game week 6 days away now from kicking it off in the Horseshoe for a December playoff game, which is something that 4 or 5 years ago I don't think I ever would have said, but here we are, and it's going to be amazing. These guys can lose to Michigan on Senior Day and then get another shot in the Horseshoe. Wow, that's incredible. What are your thoughts as we get into prep?
Well, I think the Buckeyes are going to be ready. I was really concerned, coming off the Michigan game, kind of where everybody would be at, where the coaches would be at, where the team, the game plan. I like the way that things are trending. I like the way, we've got some pretty good insiders that are kind of giving us their insight and what they describe as kind of a calm, kind of business-like atmosphere there, and I like that. I like that there's not a lot of drama surrounding the team right now. They haven't had mass, defections. There hasn't been a lot of controversies rolling around. They've been able to kind of keep their head down, and I think that's a big part of the reason why they've kept Chip Kelly, they've kept Jim Knowles out of it's just been kind of business and Ryan Day fielding some questions, and everybody else just kind of going and doing their thing. I think the offensive line, the way it's shaken out. We had talked about this, and you had predicted this about a week ago, but I think it's right. I think the offensive line is going to be what it was. For all the talk about potential changes and potential moving guys around and jumbo packages or Padilla at center or new guards or whatever it is, I think the most likely outcome right now as we sit right here, unless something changes, is going to be the same 5 guys that we rolled out against Michigan are going to be rolled out against Tennessee, and I think the changes are going to be all game plan related, all in attitude and execution from the offense. I think defensively, it's going to be a similar scheme to what they've been doing all year. They're going to play pressure. They're going to blitz, and they're going to blitz, and they're going to blitz some more, and they can get Tennessee behind the chain. Tennessee has been really, really ordinary on the road. And they think if they can get them behind the chains, they can create some turnovers, create some big play opportunities. But offensively, you're going to look for more, running play concepts, or I should say, passing play concepts that execute like running plays, like the long pass, or the passes that serve as like outside runs, long handoffs, RPOs, tempo, doing things like that to try to help out the run game concepts. But they realize they don't have a dominating offensive line. I mean, this is an offensive line that lost 2 All-Americans. We can talk about them playing like All-Americans, or they were kind of like All-American, or they look like All-American. No, these are 2 guys that were chosen to All-American teams that are not on the line due to injury. So it's not a dominating or experienced offensive line, but it's a good, solid unit that if they get it some help, it clearly can click. It's basically the same group that kind of lit up Indiana, and they can do it. They certainly can do it against Tennessee. So I like the way things are going. I'm excited, about the game next Saturday. That's going to be, again, it's always nice to be part of history and be part of something that's kind of, historic and first time ever. and we all get to experience it there next Saturday night in the Horseshoe. So I can't wait. I know the team's ready, and I'm ready too.
Yeah, I've been harping. I mean, I would have been shocked, especially coming off the Cotton Bowl last year, if we would have switched out the O line. And I know that there's been, because Ryan has to talk about pushing guys and saying stuff to get Tegra to show up and play harder and play better. So he mentions Luke Montgomery, he mentions Josh Padilla, and I don't know if that's just for keep those guys out of the portal. I don't know if that's to push Tegra. I don't know, but if we would have actually made a change and we would have said, okay, Luke Montgomery or Josh Padilla, you're going to make your first career start. We're going to bench a guy who started every game this season in Tegra, and we're going to start a guy brand new versus Tennessee in a playoff game. I maybe it would go well. I mean, I know that they did that last year when they were. Again, I don't know if they were trying to prove a point last year with Carson. They benched Carson, and he's there's no way they're putting him in. And we played Matt Jones at center, and it was one of the worst line performances I've ever seen, just because the communication was terrible, which made the play terrible, which made the whole offense terrible. And then obviously you lose Cal McCord to the portal. Devin gets hurt. It was just literally there's some games, it's like the Murphy's Law, where everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. And honestly, that was kind of like the Florida game. When we lost to Florida in 06, I remember, when I found out that Ted Ginn broke his leg on the first play of the game, I was like, yeah, that's not a great omen for us. And obviously we saw how that ended up. But I like where this team is. And I think that, and to your point, we've lost 2 first-team All-Americans with Josh and Stephen McLaughlin. And it's almost like we've lost 3 because the All-American that we still have that's healthy, Donnie, isn't playing the spot where he was an All-American. He's playing tackle now. He's an All-American as a guard. Playing tackle, he's not been an All-American. But he's been hanging in there. I mean, he hasn't been great, but they got to help him versus 27. And I'll say that until I keel over and die on Saturday when they leave him one-on-one with 27, because 27 is their best player on the entire team. And they didn't help him out versus 11 from Penn State, who's a real good player and won unanimous All-American. So hopefully they'll listen to the show and they'll take my advice and actually have a good game plan for the pass protection. But Donnie's got he's got the big matchup. But again, these guys did really well versus now Tennessee's front is 55 million times better than Indiana's is, but there are ways to get around going against them. Again, you move the pocket, you get the horizontal run game going. Get rid of the ball fast. Again, the team that had a great template, and I've watched this game 15 times since this matchup, is the Georgia. Georgia played these guys, and Georgia has a good offensive line, but they're not. They aren't like some ungodly Herculean unit. I mean, I watched their guys, and they got an all SEC tackle and whatever, and he's good. But he's not that good, And I'm watching him, and he's about like Donnie. Donnie's obviously much more comfortable playing guard, so he played for most of his career. But they got rid of the ball exceptionally fast. Georgia did not screw around with it, hold it for 10 years, and the quarterback sits back there and get killed. Like I said, if I'm Chip Kelly and Ryan, Georgia beat them soundly. The thing is, they made plays when they had to, and you gotta, we have a big advantage versus their secondary, and that's our receivers versus their secondary. Chip Kelly and Ryan Day have to remember that we still have Emeka Egbuka on the team, who, there's a lot of stats floating around for the last 6 games where he averaged 36 yards total per game, which is crazy for a guy who was preseason All-American, and Biletnikoff, a guy that no, I mean it's hard to win the Biletnikoff with JJ just because obviously he's going to take a lot of your targets and a lot of your buzz, because JJ is just better than Emeka is, but Emeka is still potentially a first, second roundish type player, but we haven't used him enough, and I think that he's the guy that needs to touch the ball in the running game with the horizontal runs, because that's something that is a unique skill that he's better than. We've had this run of guys going back to Olave, Garrett Wilson, obviously Marvin, Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like Emeka out of all those guys is the guy who's got the most running back traits where you could hand him the ball, and he's not anywhere near as explosive as Percy Harvin, but he's still pretty explosive. So he's a guy that if I was drawing it up, I'd say, well, let's get him some touches out of the backfield. And we did it earlier in the year. Like we ran that orbit motion play, and an orbit motion is where they're in shotgun and they kind of loop him back behind the quarterback and they hand him the ball. And that was like fantastic. I was like, that is like exactly what I want. Is like get him the ball at a dead sprint and let him go around the corner and go get a cheap 6-7 yards on the edge. And then they stopped doing it for whatever reason. Like the thing that is insane about this offensive coaching staff is that they'll run stuff that I'm just like, that is incredible, awesome. And then they'll shelf it or they'll come with a game plan where like, you know, they run some of the stuff that I think would be awesome. Like again, I've said it many times against Michigan, get on the edges. Their ends aren't that great. They ran speed option. They got right on the edge. They pitched it 20 free yards for our running back. And then they never ran it again. And I was like, it's insanity, but this should get fixed. Again, I think Tennessee that's the best D line that we're going to see by far. But they've lost a bunch of games. You know, Arkansas was able to block them, and surely, you know, as a whole, we are better than Arkansas is, especially our skill guys, our running back, kind of the whole 9 yards. But you know, like I said, this Tennessee team, they're not invincible. They've got a bunch of losses, and you know, if they show up, you know, it's going to be a war and it's going to be a fight, and our guys got to get ready to go. Nevada, you know, as we get into the prep and the game week, there's also the amazing excitement of the transfer portal, which is going on where we're hosting kids from programs like Northwestern, you know, potentially Nevada, if our boy Big Worlds shows up this week. What's your thought on this? Because it's crazy. My kicker, Jesus, ended up going to Arizona State. We didn't host him. Talk a little bit about the dynamic of getting ready for a playoff game and also hosting kids at the same time. Because it's just so fascinating that teams have to do this. Because there's a lot, like, I mean, it's not just us. I mean, every playoff team is hosting transfer portal visitors, and I could imagine us, you know, like beating Northwestern this season, and then like we're getting ready for prep, and then all of a sudden you've got a kid from Northwestern visiting, you know, and hanging out with you, and then you know, the next week he could be visiting this week he could be visiting Tennessee for an official visit, like during their game prep. Like it's a weird dynamic. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's crazy, and it's something that hasn't really gotten a lot of discussion. But just the idea that given, let's just talk about the kicker, for example. We've talked about Jesus. We need this kicker, and so what do? You bring him in, and basically you're telling the kicker that you're riding with this Saturday against Tennessee that we're replacing you with this other guy next year that we're bringing. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, the dynamic on the existing players, and that goes for every position. That goes for offensive tackles. That goes for any position where you bring a guy in where you're saying, hey, we're going to bring you in. But what is the impact of the guy that's on that's not only on your team, but is playing, that's still playing right now? You're not playing in some meaningless bowl. You're playing for the whole enchilada. So, Ohio State's got to be really careful about how they handle it. And with NIL now, I'm seeing these NIL deals, these NIL demands from these players, and the players. And I won't go to a specific player in terms of this, but these are the types of things that they're asking for. Obviously, we all know about money, and we're like, okay, they're asking for money. We got that. Then they're asking to be guaranteed that they'll start. They want a starting position guaranteed to them. And that obviously creates some interesting dynamics. And you're like, okay, we'll guarantee you a starting spot, for whatever that means at whatever position. Then they're asking, if they're a situation like if they're a defensive player, they want to make sure that they're playing, all four down. They want to they don't want to come off the field. They want to make sure I play on third downs as well. I mean, that's the level of detail that's the level of demand that you're getting from some of these kids. And I mean, it's really wild what these coaches are having to deal with. And we just saw the safety from Purdue just went to Oregon, And I see some people freaking out about that, and I was just like, I'm not convinced that he's better than any of the guys that we have in our locker room, because we've got some really talented safeties that have played really well, that have flashed every time they've been out in the field. The only difference is they don't play at Purdue. So if those guys played at Purdue, they play every down. They play every down, probably play offense, special teams, and perform in the band at halftime too. They would never leave the field. But because they're at Ohio State and because they're behind Caleb Downs and Lathan Ransom, they're sitting. And they don't have a chance to get as much tape as this guy is. So is this guy better than them? I don't know. So him going to Oregon, I just, for me, it's, I think the position that we need to fill is offensive line, more so than kicker, more so than anything. It's offensive. The offensive line is where we need the help, because it's the one where we've got the obvious position of need, with our left tackle having been injured for the year, our right tackle being a senior and aging out. We have available tackle spots. So if you can find a guy that's there, get that, fill that need, and that's what Ohio State's trying to do. They're hoping to be able to close the deal with Josh Thompson this week, the big tackle from Northwestern. I'm not sure if he's taking multiple other visits, or how that whole thing's going to go, or how this meeting with Ohio State changed things for him. But if Ohio State strikes out on offensive tackles in the portal, then that would be bad. Then that would be something where, like, you could say that was not a bad thing. But any other position, I'm just really not there. I'm not broken up about safety. Would like to get a running back. Think we need a running back for sure, because the running back room certainly looks a little sparse. So I'd say offensive line and running back. If we don't get at least one offensive line starter and one running back, then I think the portal season has been very disappointing for Ohio State, borderline bad. But if we get two offensive linemen, very good. And I think we will. I think we will. I mean, Ohio State knows what's at free. They've got a great collective. They've got money put aside, and they've got a great story with so many accolades going for the offensive lineman this year. If there was a time to be an offensive lineman and want to get recognized, man, Ohio State had a great year with that this year, and credit to them for doing that. So that's where I think that we're at with the portal.
Yeah, I think, and another thing is like, we still don't know who all is going to enter the portal, like, from these playoff teams, because you've got, like, they're going to have a window after their last game, which for some of these guys, they have no idea when that's going to be, because you could play 4 more games at this point. So after the say Tennessee or somebody, say they or whoever, Penn State, someone that this hosting a game, they play 4 games. After that last game, they got 5 days under the portal. So, some of the guys that could be on the radar and could be better players than the guys that we could go after, they're not even in the portal yet. So, and then there's also the second window. That's why, like, I'm not going to be like heartbroken if we don't get a guy and we wait till that second portal window, because that's when we got Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons is the guy that, when they took Josh Simmons, man, they're like, okay, this is gonna be our guy for 3 years, and then he just happened to be so good that he's out after 2. So I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to get overly upset if we miss on a guy now in the portal. I look at some of the guys that we've hosted over the last couple of years. There was a tackle that went to USC, did not get drafted, or if he did, it was very late. Did not pan out and turn into anything near as good as Josh Simmons. He's the guy that I remember. He was from, I think he was from Washington State, and he visited us. And then he's a West Coast kid, so he's a pick in SC, and SC's been terrible. He's a rookie in the NFL somewhere. He's a late rounder or undrafted guy. And I remember everyone was depressed we didn't get him. He stayed in California, and then we waited till the end of the portal cycle for the first round, and then we go through spring ball with Josh Fryers, our left tackle, and kind of a amalgamation of guys working through trying to figure out who we're going to put where. I remember that spring, because I was saying that we should play Donnie at left tackle, and we should put Fryer at right tackle, and away you go. Like, that was like what I projected 2 years ago before Josh Simmons was on the team. And then we got and get Josh Simmons, who, was a kid that, I mean, we made him work his way up the depth chart. The first day of training camp, he was like running with the 3s, and he's running with the 2s, and he becomes a starter. And then they moved him to the left side because, again, there was a moment in time where they were trying to make Josh Fryer the starting left tackle, and I remember I watched him in the spring game. I was like, "There's just no way," because his footwork was tangled up. It was terrible, and he's a guy that, um, on the right side, I thought he looked pretty good. Because you got to remember, a couple years ago, Dewan got hurt, and Josh Fryer had to pinch hit. The year that we had Paris and Dewan, we had that great duo of tackles. Like Josh Fryer had to step in and play right tackle, and I remember watching him. I think he was playing Indiana, and he played great. I mean, he really played well, and I was like, well, he could start next year easily, especially when he gets another year under his belt. He gets an offseason as a starter. Like, he'll be in good shape. And he's been good. He's been very serviceable, and he's done a nice job. He didn't clean up the awards, but he hasn't been bad either. Not every guy gets to get all the awards. So kind of is what it is. But he's a guy that I think is probably a little underappreciated for what he's done. But, there's just going to be, there has to be some patience with the portal. Again, it's hard. Like, I would hate being Ryan Day. I would hate being these players, because the only thing I can compare it to personally is like recruiting. So, when they would host kids that were, that basically try to replace you with, like, it would always get you feeling some type of way. And I'll never forget in 03 going into 04, they put, back then they were allowed to put the nameplate of a recruit on the jersey. So they, now they do the photo shoots and stuff for the guys wear their 74 jerseys or whatever color or whatever jersey they want. Back then they could put like the actual nameplate on it. So I remember David Patterson, you guys gotta say, David Patterson's like one of my best friends, one of my favorite teammates. He was a captain in 04. We came in together. Long history. I love him to death. I've had him on the show. I'm gonna have him on again because he's great. He was dogging me out because he came in the one day and they had Dan Doring, who was this like 5-star tackle from Iowa. I think he's from Illinois, and he ended up going to Iowa. And they had like his name on my 74 jersey, like in my locker stall. And, again, you guys know me, like, it doesn't take much to get me exceptionally violent and angry, but that did it. And I was hot. And so I was like, I felt some type of way. And then, of course, he's a 5-star, commits at the Army game, goes to Iowa and sucks. Never did a single thing. Just trash. And it was just funny because, like, I was so angry in that moment. And so now, like, these kids are getting ready for playoff games, especially the depth guys, like the second string guys. And they're watching this, this kid from Northwestern get kind of, led around, and they get to meet with them. And it's weird. And like I said, the thing that would be really weird and something that I'm sure these guys are getting used to, and I would have been weird, is like, this is a guy they played against this year. This is a guy that was on Northwestern, and I'm sure that they watched the film of him against our guys and how'd he do. And now you're hosting him. So again, it's like hosting a free agent in the NFL. It's not like hosting a draft pick. So, but it's such a weird balancing act that we have to do this during the playoffs while we're getting ready to go. And the kid literally could leave here and go visit Tennessee like the same week, which again, I don't think he's going to give him any sort of schematic advantage, but that would be kind of weird in my head. But it looks like we're going to get our boy Isaiah Worlds to come visit. He's a 6'8" tackle from Nevada. We watched his film a little bit. I like him a lot. He needs to get much, much, much stronger. But you can't coach 6'8". I would say that you can't coach a 6'8", 310-pound tackle. He's got some ability. He can move really well. He has to discover what a weight room looks like, because I can tell that he is a guy that probably walks past the weight room and walks straight to his car every day. But if he got in the weight room and decided to put in some work, then I think he could be a really good player in our system. And the thing about our offensive line is we've had a lot of kind of surprise attrition, like when Luke Whippler declared. Even though on our message board we had people that knew Luke that said he was going to declare, and nobody in the Woody Hayes seemed to believe that or know that he was going to declare, but we did. And we'd been talking about it for months, and so we had him leave early. I think that there was probably a little bit of surprise that Dewan left, but they kind of knew Dewan's family situation, that he'd probably leave. But when you have three guys leave early, it kind of resets the whole room. And then all of a sudden, like this year, like losing Josh Simmons is tough because I think that they were hoping somehow they could reel him back in, how they reeled in, all the guys last year. But it's hard when you grow into being a first rounder. Even with the injury, I still think he at worst he's a second round pick. He's like a bargain bin, top 10 left tackle or top 10 pick type left tackle. So he's not gonna last past the first 60 picks or so. And plus, there's something to it when guys aren't from here. Just because I think some of these guys, they don't have that allegiance and that loyalty where they're just like, man, I want to beat Michigan and I want to come back and I want to tree in Buckeye Grove. Like, there's some guys where, they're loners. And Josh is a big time loner. He's a guy that's not around the team much, kind of in his own little world. He's from the West Coast, which again is fine. Yeah, I mean, as long as he's out there on Saturday and does a great job, I don't care. I mean, he can do whatever he wants. But so that wasn't super surprising to me. But again, I like it. I mean, we get big worlds in here, which again, that'd be a great nickname for that left tackle. I think it'd be fantastic. Nevada, what are your thoughts? Because again, like I think the dynamic of hosting these guys during a practice and again, a lot of these guys, they're coaching for their lives. These players are playing to keep one more day on the schedule. Because as soon as the clock hits 0 and you're losing, you're done. Like that's something that's never happened before, outside of a bowl game. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I just find the human element on all this stuff the most interesting because I think a lot of times fans take kind of a video game approach to the portal where it's like, here's a name, we can add him to our team, and add a body here and add a body there, and they just don't ever really consider the implications, the unintended consequences of the ads. And I just think that now that you're doing it in the middle of a college football 12-team playoff prep, it just becomes wackier and wackier. And I think for these kids that are kind of going around, they're trying to kind of walk on eggshells too, because they realize that a lot of these teams, they want to go to these premier teams. They still got guys. They still got guys. There's still names on the lockers. There's still guys there, and there's still guys that believe they can play and that they can succeed. And they're not looking at when you're walking into that thing. Nobody there is looking at it and kind of go, "Wow, this guy's going to be helpful." They're looking at you like, this guy's here to take somebody's job. This guy's here to take somebody here who's been slugging it out for a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, and they're here to take the job. And it's like I said, the portal, instantaneous free agency, and the idea that all these players are on these 1-year on-demand contracts is just something. I got to retrain my brain thinking about things, because it's just it wasn't the way it was. It was always recruit a kid, bring him in. We used to have fun projecting the depth chart 2 and 3 years out and stuff like that. And now, like, that's just worthless. I mean, it's absolutely worthless to try to project the depth chart any more than one season away. I mean, I think 1 season away is the most you can do. Maybe you can think about 2, but I don't know how you could possibly do it, because you've got to re-recruit the guys. You've got to bring the guys back. You've got to basically re-sign all your free agents and bring them back and put them in, into the place and do your thing and keep everybody away from everybody else. So, good luck with the coaches. And oh, by the way, we got a game against Tennessee on Saturday. So lots of jobs for Ryan Day, and I don't envy him having to do them.
Well, yeah, and the hard part is like when you're some of these kids, like if you're the kid from Northwestern and you're going to go visit Auburn, like Auburn's going to pay more money than we are for that kid. It's because some of these schools are so desperate and they're so behind and they're so they didn't make the playoff and they've been known for spending money. Like they're going to overpay on kids. So at what point does the kid take the most money versus the best opportunity? And like there's been guys that have gotten crazy money, and I'm just like, well, I want to pay that guy either. Like I actually applaud Ohio State for not, because again, it's not well, let's pay everybody as much as their top of their market value and hope that it works out. And if it doesn't, whatever. To me, it's a thing where, that kid's got to go visit Auburn and Florida State. And those schools, they spend like a sailor on shore leave. It's crazy. And again, that's fine. But, good luck. Like if I'm that kid, it was funny. Like we went through the whole thing with JJ where Florida State was after him, and he was going up to Tallahassee all the time. Like imagine if you're JJ Smith and you decide to go to Florida State this year and you go 2-10 or whatever that ended up being, or Travis Hunter was talking about it, the Heisman, where he's just like, I imagine if I'd have gone to Florida State, like he'd have been, I'm sure he still would have been great, but would he have won the Heisman and gotten all the accolades and being utilized correctly? Probably not. Not when you're in a bad program. So, if I'm a lineman and I'm looking around and if especially if I'm an offensive lineman and I'm like, look, Ohio State has said they've been on this incredible run under Ryan Day, and some of it was under Greg Sudoir, and some of it was under Justin Fry. But like between Paris, let's start with Nick Petit Frere, Thayer Munford, Paris, DeWand, Luke Whippler. This year we're gonna have Donnie, Josh, Seth McLaughlin. We just want another Remington, most Remingtons. And even if you're a guard, like I think that if you can play with a bunch of Remington winners, that means that they're probably developing the interior guys well too. I don't know. It would be hard for me to not pick Ohio State. But again, these guys have to manage. I think that the hardest thing you have to do is you have to really manage what's going on inside of your room, especially like with the offensive line, because you have to take more numbers just because by definition you have 5 guys on the field. But how does bringing in a kid from Northwestern and offer him a certain amount of money affect the guys in the second team? Are they saying, well, clearly I'm not going to get a real shot to start, so clearly I need to move on after the season and hit the portal? Because again, not every kid that is going to portal has already hit the portal. Some have. Obviously, Jaden Ballard visited Wisconsin, and there's some guys that are kind of moving along, but there's going to be more guys after the last game, and I think that some guys wanted to stick around to see how the prep went and how the game went. So, yeah, but I think it's going to be absolutely exciting this Saturday. Again, the task at hand is let's beat Tennessee. Like, who cares about anything else? But the way the calendar is set up, man, with the academics, like you got to get these portal kids into the school. So, be interesting to see who we land. All right, we got a super chat, so we'll get into that. Appreciate you, Ian Bates. Thank you for the 5. RD is the line. It was tired in the 4th. Another big game equals no rotation. We rotate on D, the least by far out of all 12 left in the playoffs. Nevada, I noticed that because we really don't. I mean, like guys like Caden Curry's got a major beef because he does not play enough, I don't think. And I think Larry gets a little scared sometimes of putting in Kenyatta and Caden especially versus running teams like Michigan, because they're not great versus the run. Let's just be honest, but they're good pass rushers. But what are your thoughts on a rotation? Because again, I see our guys wear down. Like I think Caden McDonald, I say every week he needs to play more, and he doesn't. And I think that when we get into these tight games, Larry just tightens up the rotation. But the flip of it is that when it gets colder outside, you don't really need to rotate as much because guys aren't dying like when it's September and it's 97 degrees outside and you're on the turf where it's 110 and guys are losing fluid because it's so exhausting and hot. But what are your thoughts on the rotations? Again, it's been a big talk, but I always like the flip of it is look, some of those guys need to play better when they're actually in there so that the coaches have more gusto to actually make the substitution. Because again, if Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson are out there just mauling people, then they'd be in more. But when they're out there and they're just okay and they're generally liabilities versus the run, then it's tough. Because you can say a lot of stuff about JT and Jack. They're very, very difficult versus the run. So, we don't give up as few yards as we do without those guys being great up front versus the run. Now, against the pass, with sack production, I get it. All the criticism you guys want to throw around. But, JT was first team All Big Ten. So, you take him out and then all of a sudden it's easy. And I think Jack was second team All Big Ten. So, you got 2 All Big Ten players basically that you're pulling out to put in some guys that aren't quite as good against the run and by definition. But what are your thoughts, Nevada, on the D-line rotations?
Well, I know that's well, first of all, I'll start by saying it's really hard for me to find too much fault with the D. Since the Oregon game, our D has been unbelievable. We're number one in the in the country in just about every single category. Um, even in the Michigan game, we gave up a grand total of 13 points, 7 of which started at the 2 yard line. So our defense has played really well, but clearly our defensive rotations aren't as deep as other teams. But to your point, you took the words right out of my mouth. Our guys got to be better. The only two guys that I feel like have a legitimate beef for more playing time are Caden McDonald and Caden Curry. Those are the only two guys that have a beef. Everybody else, whenever they put that guy in there, I know it. You could change the numbers and do the thing, and I can just watch the result of the play, and I'll be like, oh, I guess Mitchell Melton was in there. Oh, I guess Kenyatta Jackson was in there. Oh, heaven forbid I put Hero Canoe in there. So the guy's got to be better. I mean, it's one thing to say, well, Tennessee's got a really deep defensive line, but if they've got guys that are productive and playing and flashing and not just getting blown off the ball, then they should play. And I think Caden McDonald's been great. All of them. I think Caden McDonald is a horse. I think Caden McDonald is a guy that's going to play in the NFL for a long. He'll be a Ryan Pickett or something that he'll play in the NFL for 10 years. And I think he's an absolute monster. I think Caden Curry is really good against the pass, as you said, but against the run, he's a little light. And we've got a number of guys that are light against the run that just don't hold the point of attack. And I think JT and Jack, the way that the traditional way to rate defensive ends is by sacks, and they're not great sack masters, even though JT's had amazing games and Jack can do more, but they're incredible. They're A+ against the run, and that's an underrated skill set that people don't talk a lot about on the defensive line. But so my answer is yes. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more. Give me more Caden McDonald. Give me more Caden Curry in passing situations. But everybody else, you got to be better, because the reason you're not getting playing time is because every time they put you out there, the other team runs for 7.5 yards, and that's got to stop.
Yeah, and like trust me, like in your dream, you wish that you could put guys out there, and you can't. They're obviously not going to have the same production as JT and Jack, but they gotta be close. I mean, they got to give you 80%, and I think some of those guys, especially if we're starting, because you got to remember, like they're both smaller guys. They're not as strong as JT and Jack. Obviously, they're not as old either, but even next year, I don't think they're going to be as physically, imposing. To go against. And I think that that's going to be a major issue. And, I think that's why they're going to have to look portal for DNs. And I mean, if Edric has to go back out there, then so be it. And Edric's a guy that he didn't really rotate much because he's not, he's a little bit of a liability in the running game. He had the one game where he played a ton and he's active, he's productive, but he's still a freshman, so when you put him out there, it's going to be targeted, but you can tell teams go after our backup ends when they're in there. Like when we put them in versus, heavier running teams, then it's going to be probably in Tennessee's. I got news for you guys. They're going to try to run the ball on us because they've got a good line, but they've got their tailbacks all SEC. So if you want to put it on Nico and have his arm try to run you, then that would play right into Ohio State's hands if they try to beat us throwing the ball, which I don't think that they have. With this weather and wind and cold, and I think it's going to be run the ball, control the clock, play defense. Because Tennessee, they're physical. They're up front. They're physical. I looked at their D-line. I mean, their D-line rotates a ton of guys because I watched the tape. But the problem is like I'll watch their tape and I'm like, man, is that number 10 again? Or is that number 27 again? And I'll look at it, it'll be someone else and they'll look the same or they'll be productive. They'll make a flash play and I'll be like, whew, they got a lot of them and they're good. So, like I said, our guys can beat them. Again, we're favored to win the game, so this isn't doom and gloom or anything. But we're just kind of saying what they have to do. And again, I think that you gotta take advantage of the fact that Will Howard is very athletic. You gotta move him around because that helps the offensive line. Like I'm not just doing it for what I want to surmise. I'm doing it because I think that it's the best way to help the interior of the O-line is don't sit in a static pocket and be a sitting duck and then end up having some of these issues where we have issues in pass protection because our guys, there's a bunch of guys that are going to need help in pass protection in this game. And again, you can help them by getting rid of the ball fast, moving the pocket, run. Oh my God, heaven forbid we run a screen, which like break the glass on the screenplay for the playoff game when these guys like to rush upfield. I would screen these guys to death. I mean, I would be like, let's go on screen every like third play and make them a lot more hesitant to just run up the field the way that they like to do. But that's their defensive concept. It's not hold the line and whatever. It's for these guys, it's get upfield, wreck shop, and sort the bodies out afterwards. So when teams like to do that, I mean, they're so vulnerable to screens. And when you have a guy like Trey, I mean, I can just envision and close my eyes and literally envision the plays that I'd like to run with him. There's a lot of great ones where he's faking pass protect. He blocks for a second, spins out, dump it right over their heads, give it to Trey right in the middle of the field, and watch him run for, 50 yards. Like those are the type of things that'd be super, super easy. So I got a second super chat. Sorry, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for the 5. Thanks for being on here this Sunday. Who are some of the past Buckeye D linemen who've been good against both the pass and the run, and what does it take to be good at both? Nevada OH. Oh God, I mean the two Bosa brothers and Chase Young were the platinum standards of being able to play both. Obviously Will Smith was excellent at both, so I had to go against him in both. Nevada, I'll let you start because I've been talking a lot, but here's some guys you think of that could play the run and the pass equally well.
Well, you grabbed 4 of the best right there,
That's why I handed it to you, because I wanted to make sure you couldn't name any other names after those 4. So
I mean, Will Smith is my all-time favorite player. I mean, I just think that Will Smith was the ultimate unblockable specimen there, and but having guys like him and Darian Scott and like I said, the Bosa brothers were obviously unbelievable. I'm trying to think about guys in years gone by. I mean, I'd have to. I mean, the defense is just so different back in the old days. But it's rare. It's rare to have those guys. The guys, like I said, the 4 that you mentioned were all exceptional pass rushers as well as against the run. They were so disruptive. They were so smart. They could sniff out the screens. They knew how to use their hands, get guys off of them. And I think that's really, I mean, Jack and JT, they're so good against the run, but then they're just sticky, against in the passer. They just seem to kind of Velcro themselves to those offensive tackles, and they can't disengage. But those 4 guys that you mentioned were they were all exceptional. But some people had to get some names in the chat. I know I'm forgetting stuff, but I was ready to go with Will Smith, my ultimate one. Your war daddy out there. And you stole them from me before I had a chance to say them.
See, I know. I like to do that and then throw it to you and see what you do. And you just
stump me with it. Yeah,
you're just you're like a pig on the ice, just slipping around and falling down like upside down. Like me live betting that fight, then my guy gets knocked out 2 minutes later. Oh God, yeah. That's not
not when it was Sterling though.
Not the dogs on Poppy picks for sure. Just the one. But I'm just like, man, this guy looks really good. And then it turns out he's losing the fight too.
When you decided to solo, that's the problem.
Yeah, and you bet it too. So it wasn't like I was just it's not like my eyes.
No, trust me, I was right there.
I might have had a couple Frosties in me from Twin Peaks, but it wasn't like I wasn't that bad. I was like, Jesus, I'm not gonna lay that kind of a thing. But the keys to being good versus the run. And I think it is much more difficult to rush the passer than it is to be great at the run. And I also think that it's much more difficult to rush the passer now because quarterbacks are much more athletic than they used to be. I think that the passing games are much more advanced than they used to be. And I think that the advent of like RPOs and a lot of the stuff where you kind of have to, it keeps pass rushers a little bit more honest. Like the quarterback athleticism is a huge issue when it comes to rushing the passer now. Because I think that you have to be honest. Like I'm watching, in the side of I'm watching like Anthony Richardson run a triple option RPO and runs it into the end zone from 30 yards out. Like, I mean, you can't just blindly rush up the field and pass rush the way that you could, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, like when the RPOs weren't quite as big. But a lot of being a great run defender is just effort, playing hard. You got to be physical. You got to be great with your hands. You got to be able to get guys off blocks. There's just there's a whole litany of things that are important. But I think that something, and a lot of it, like as I'm saying, I'm thinking of Jack, like Jack Sawyer, very good with his hands, very physical, tough. And really defending the run is it's like a total defensive attitude where you're just not gonna let a team run the ball. You're gonna run the ball. Because again, running the ball or excuse me, run defense is it's a lot of guys running, pursuing the ball, gang tackling. I know it sounds like cliches, but it's the truth. Like if I'm Jim Knowles, I'm like, dude, like we have got to get this running back on the ground. This running back from Tennessee will kill us if we don't get to him and gang tackle him. And there's sometimes where guys they let up. They think that a guy's wrapped up, he's not, and you got to make sure the guy gets on the ground. Because again, I think that a problem with modern football is there's a lot of times where guys are in the grasp of the defense and the officials will blow the whistle, and even though he's still up, just to keep you keep the guy from absorbing a hit. But sometimes they won't blow the whistle, and I think that was an issue against Michigan where we get a guy in the grasp and guys kind of let up because they're assuming there's going to be a whistle, and then there's no whistle. And then he pops out the back end and he runs for 20 yards. And you're just like, well, yeah, I mean he's like in the grasp, but they don't call it. So I mean you got to kind of get that out of your head and just go get the guy on the ground. And if they call a penalty or something, just let it go, whatever. But I also think that in terms of pass rush, a lot of hands. It's a lot of you got to have the speed. I mean, the speed is the thing that can kill you in the pass rush. You look at the best pass rushers in the NFL; they all have exceptional speed, but they have great hands because you have to be slippery. You have to get guys' hands off you. It's not just draft the fastest defensive ends and you'll magically have the most X, because if a defensive end can't beat an offensive tackle's hands, he has no chance of passers. Because you'll see these ends they'll run 4.3, 4.4 40s, get drafted high, and then they don't end up getting the sack numbers that you project, and they end up being busts in the NFL. It's because they don't have any hands. They can't get the lineman's hands off them. They don't develop counter moves. Maybe they're a one-trick pony. And when you go to the NFL, I mean, if you've only got one move, you're done. Like you have no shot. You got to develop counter moves, and kind of expand your game. But again, like I said it 50 times, like you watch like Max Crosby and Nick Bosa, and their hands are just exceptional when it comes to pass rush. And that's the thing that these guys all work on. I think that our ends hands are okay. But I think that they stay blocked too much, to be honest with you. And again, I think they're both going to be gone in the first 2 rounds. I think JT and Jack will both go in the first 2 rounds. But and honestly, I think that their sack production will actually go up in the NFL because there's less of the RPO and read option stuff that there is in college. So I think that hurts us a little bit. And plus in the pros, they just don't run quarterbacks as often just because it's hard to risk your quarterback who's your franchise if he's getting hit consistently the way that it happens in college. So I actually think that their stuff will tick up. And plus in the pros, like a lot of these quarterbacks hold the ball way longer, because the pass routes are longer developing. So you see this uptick in pressure, and like you go against like Deshaun Watson, he'll hold the ball for 10 seconds and he gets sacked 9 times. And if I'm the offensive line coach, I'm just saying, why is this guy doing this? So that he's trying to get us all fired, which some of these guys do. We have another super chat. Appreciate you. Studley Budley, thanks for the 5. Is something wrong with Quinshawn, or is just the line being depleted? Any intel? I don't know, but there's been a downtick in production. I think some of it is obviously the line. I mean, you lose your Remington award-winning center, that's not going to help. And season's long. There's been a dip, and I don't know if maybe it's just my eyes. I don't think he looks as explosive as he did early in the season. What are your thoughts on that? I don't think there's anything physically wrong with him, but the decline in production has been noticeable, and Trey's decided to be the clear number 1 back, at least in my opinion, and I'm sure in your opinion too. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think one, I mean, yeah, Quinshon's got a lot of miles on him. I mean, he took a lot of carries at Ole Miss. That's one of the reasons why he came to Ohio State. But I think it speaks to a more basic. We were looking at it when you're looking at the tape from the Michigan game. And you see some plays that were blocked up pretty well up front, and the running backs just didn't trust it. They didn't take it where it was blocked up to be. They try to start bouncing things outside because they don't trust the guys up on the front to block the guys. And nobody, if you're running full speed as a running back, the last thing you want to do is run into a wall. And so you start to get gun shy. You start to see ghosts, and when guys are missing blocks, and that's what happened. We had a couple plays that literally would have been touchdowns. If Trey follows runs the play where it's supposed to be, he probably goes into the end zone untouched. Instead, he decides to bounce it outside for a 2-yard loss, and we end up missing a field goal on that drive, and everybody's going crazy. If he'd have waltzed in the end zone, maybe we end up winning that game by 21 points. I mean, that's how the fine the line was between stuff. But I think with Quinshon, I think it is tied to, you know, our line just isn't, it hasn't been performing at the same level when you lose the type of guys that we have. And I think it's been a period of adjustment. And I think Quinshon's just got to trust it. And then you combine that with some really questionable play calling and an offense. This is a related but different question, because we talk about offensive production about a Mecca. We talk about Quinshon's offensive production. We go too freaking slow. Okay. If your opponents want to go slow, why would you go slow as well? I don't understand it. I don't understand the go to the line, look back, look at Ryan Day, look at the thing, run the clock down to 2, snap the ball. Like, we are getting less. You look at the number of plays we're getting, and I think we're getting the fewest plays of anybody in the college football playoff right now. And it's just crazy because we go so slow. And so I think that a lot of things would change if we would just go faster. Our offensive production would pick up, our players' numbers would look better, and players like Quinshon and Emeka would all of a sudden, it wouldn't look so bad. So, offensive line injuries, wear and tear of the season, but I think offensive we just go too slow, and we need to go faster. And Ryan Day's got to be committed to that, and they've got to be able to pull it off because teams are slowing the games down on us, and that does not work to our advantage.
Yeah, I think that I think it's real. Like, you can tell when a guy like Trey doesn't trust his interior line when he's running some of the plays, like especially with Michigan versus Graham, because it was such an obvious mismatch when he was going against Tegra that like they didn't trust him. Again, there was a draw play where looked pretty open. It was that third down call where the entire stadium went ballistic and was booing out of their minds. And, it's a delay, delay draw, handed off to Quinshon, and Mason Graham throws Tegra on the ground and hits him. And again, that shouldn't happen like that quick. I mean, it was like it was an infant versus Mason Graham, and it was hard. And again, like I said all week, you can't leave him one-on-one. And again, I have nothing against Tegra, but when you're not, when you don't put in the work and all of a sudden you go against a guy like that, it's going to show up big time. And it's been tough. I mean, like I said, that was the one guy you couldn't leave alone, and we left him alone because again, we've got our offensive brain trust thought that was a good idea, which again, it's fine. They make a lot of money and they've forgotten more football than I'll ever know. But I know that I wouldn't leave that guy one-on-one with Tegra. I watch all the tape. I watch all the stuff those guys do. And I said that for weeks. But I think that, I don't know. Like Quinshon, I hope that he goes out with a bang, because I was loving him mid-season. Looked explosive, looked really good. I was thinking, at a point, and I said it, that I was like, probably take him over Trey in the draft just because he's a year younger. But he's really, the legs just don't look as there. I guess you could say. So, but like these guys got a big opportunity, and our line's they're gonna show up and play. I mean, this is gonna be a big opportunity for all of them, and some of these guys will kind of set the tone for the offseason and everything, good or bad, with this Tennessee game. It's their front's really good. I've watched them and studied them, and you can't screw around this one. You can't be doing that, whatever. And I think that's it's a big opportunity for these guys. Ian Bates, thank you for the deuce. Kirk Dog, I know you know, was Ryan Day calling the plays versus Michigan? He was not, but I can sense when he has more of a say in the game plan. And I think this was Ryan Day's game plan was we are going to be tough and we're going to run we are going to attack a walled city, which my high school coach used to always say was a really dumb thing to do because anyone that studies military strategy knows that attacking a walled city is about the dumbest thing you can do. He would always say to our coaches when they would say don't do dumb things and during practice, he'd say you'd attack a walled city. And I think Ryan wanted to prove that he was tough. We're gonna run at Michigan because you gotta understand, like when Michigan ran us out of the gym for 3 straight years, they ran the ball, they were tougher than us, all that. It got in Ryan's head, and Ryan is Marty McFly. And when you call Marty McFly a chicken, then he loses his mind and he's got to fight Biff Tannen and do whatever, like just completely out of his skull. And when you call Ryan Day soft, it's the same thing. Like he has to prove that he's tough by running at their best players and not throwing it to JJ Smith. And we're gonna do again, it worked. You could have played into Wink Martindale and Sharon Moore's hands any easier than Ryan did. So I think he had a huge impact on the game. I think he wanted to prove that we were tough. And again, I think that toughness is, I talk about it a lot, but it could be, if you have to go out and prove you're tough all the time, you're probably going to put yourself in some really bad situations. Like I was told somebody, I was like, I could say I'm really tough. I could say, you know what? I'll show you how tough I am. I'm going to go jump off that building. You don't think I can do it? Or you think I'm not tough to jump? I'll go throw myself in a wood chipper. And then you guys will look down and be like, well, man, Kirk, you're really tough, but you look really dumb now that you're a pile of goo because the wood chipper spit you out, So it's like sometimes like you got to pick when you're tough. There's strategic ways to do it. Like if I'm running a ground offensive, in a war, like I'm not going to say I'm going to march all my cavalry right on that hill and I'm going to wait for you and you bring your people. And then all of a sudden you get rained down with a drone strike and it wipes your whole crew out. And that ain't real tough. It's dumb. But I'd rather be strategic and intelligent than just be tough. But Ryan, again, Marty McFly with the chicken thing, that's Ryan with tough. And it's scary, but I mean, he's got to shake that out of his head and stop worrying about it. Because again, people that are actually tough don't have to run around telling everybody that they're tough. That's like I always tell people, it's like if you have to say it out loud, it's not true. The richest people I've ever met, they've never walked around and said, I'm rich. The people that aren't rich will say that they're rich. The people that aren't tough will say that they're tough. And that's just a general rule of life, in my opinion. Nevada, your thoughts. Was Ryan Day calling the plays versus Michigan?
No, I mean he doesn't really have that capability. I mean he could, but I mean just it's not really set up to do it that way. But he was more involved in the game planning, and he had given Chip Kelly the clear marching orders that we were to win the rushing battle, and that was absolutely. He was introducing new running game concepts late in the week. That's absolutely fact. So he was more involved in the game plan. He had set out the parameters, and we can all debate the psychiatry of why that was or whatever it was, but that's what it was. That's what it was. He wanted to win that rushing battle. He even talked about that post game. He said, "Well, I saw that the team that won the rushing battle," and I just keep saying, "Screw that." I mean, it doesn't matter whether just win the game. Win the game the surest way. And for us, the strength of our team, in my opinion, especially with this offensive line, when you've lost Seth and you've lost Josh Simmons, is throwing the football and running I would run RPO action. I would go fast. You've got a quarterback with 40 starts. You've got a Marmaduke, first-team All-American wide receiver. You've got a Mecca. You've got Tate. You got great skill players that can catch the ball. I'd be throwing the ball to the backs, running the RPO stuff, and pass first, and then run after you establish the pass. But that's just me.
Yeah, it's the only way to do it. You have to let JJ win this game for you. Troy Yeaster, thanks for Yenzer. Thank you for the 5. You have a question, toss that in the chat. Appreciate you, my friend. Goldfish, thank you for the 5. Hopped in late. What is the rationale for Ryan Day trying to slow it down? He's a believer / bewildering. I don't know, Nevada. I'm gonna let you take this one first, but like every time he went tempo, oh my god, it marched right down the field like it was just hot knife through butter. I said it to you when I was sitting next to you in the suite. I literally was just like, oh my God, we're fine. This is why we didn't run tempo all year. We were holding it for Michigan. This is genius. Oh my God. That's why we didn't do it. I've been waiting for it all year. We did it right down the field at the end of the first half. Oh my God, we're gonna slaughter these guys. I was like, watch, they're holding it for the second half because they didn't want them to have time to adjust for it in the locker room. So they're gonna come out and tempo them to death the whole second half. We're gonna run away with this game. And then I don't know if we ever saw it again. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just think that Ryan likes to do that kind of joystick parent type of thing with the quarterback. I think they like to get the sign, see what's going on, look at the defense. I think he likes to feel like he's still playing quarterback again, and he's some sort of an extension of Will Howard in terms of doing that. And I think it's a tactical mistake. I thought, especially, I mean, I'm not sure if we'll see it as much in the college football playoff, but I'm sure we'll see some of that. But when you're playing teams like Indiana, who are taking or Nebraska, they're taking the play clock down to 1 because they want to shorten the game. Why would you run along with them? So I think it's just, for me, I think it's Ryan wanted to be involved and again wanted to have too much input in terms of what's going on a play-by-play basis. That's my personal opinion, because when you go fast, Ryan can't really be involved. Ryan just got to sit there, hold the play sheet, and cheer. And I don't think Ryan likes that.
Well, yeah, and like sometimes, like with the when you go fast, like you luck into some good plays because you might. I think sometimes part of the issue is like when we do some of the look back stuff where we change the plays is like we guess too many times and we guess wrong and we get out of a play and we get into a bad play, which again can happen, because you're trying to guess, okay, we're going to change the play, the defense is going to change the play. Okay, if we change the play and they're thinking that we're going to change the play, what do you think that they're going to change their stuff into to try to stop the play that we're going to change into? So you do like these like mental aerobics, and all of a sudden it doesn't work. Or if you just go fast, again, a lot of the chaos that comes with going fast is part of the reason why you like to go fast. For one, the biggest thing is the defensive line cannot rotate. So when they're used to running out after every 3 plays and drinking some water and rolling guys through like Michigan was, all of a sudden when they can't get off the field, they're dying. And again, that's the beauty. I used to love tempo because the D line's not used to it. They're used to rotating. Let me get my couple plays in. Let me pass rush, whatever. Mason Graham's like cardio, so he doesn't rotate out much. But it's like if you would catch him on the sideline, I would tempo every play. It says you can't get back on the field. But there were times like I was again. I have this image of me being in the stadium and me remembering like seeing these guys run off the field and the substitutions weren't clean, and I was like, oh my God, they're a mess. They can't they can't figure out who's on the field. They can't match personnel. We're gonna get a couple when you're going really fast like good teams do, like when Aaron Rodgers was in his prime and they'd all of a sudden go no huddle, like you're gonna catch guys running off the field. You're gonna hike the ball and you're gonna get an automatic free play, which again, those add up. And when you got a guy like JJ, you get an automatic. It's like you have a free spin on the roulette wheel where you can put all your money on one number. Because if you throw to JJ deep, that thing might go to the house. And then if it doesn't, if it's an interception or incompletion, it doesn't matter because it's going to be a 5-yard too many player on the field penalty. So again, I thought we were going to tempo Michigan to death, and we did it, and it worked great, and then we just never did it again. And again, it mystifies me. The one thing that's mystifying about this offensive staff is how we'll run plays that are really good and are really successful, and I'm like, hell yes, this is and again, not because we had a bunch of pancake blocks up front or we hit a great cut by the running back. No, stuff where it's like I said, the speed option play was great, and there's teams that run speed option 10 times a game. Like it's not like it's some gimmicky, shovel pass or some end around reverse or something like that where you can't be like a core part of the portfolio. But we'll run a speed option, and I'm like, that is what I was screaming we should do, because again, their ends aren't good. I said it all week. I was like, Michigan, I'd attack those ends all day because they stink. 2 inside guys are real. The one is really real. So I'm not attacking those guys. I would attack those ends, and they did it, and then they never ran it again. And it was the cleanest, easiest yardage that we got all game. It was 20 yards on one play. So, but yeah, I don't know. I wish Ryan would go fast. I know how hard it is for defenses to defend tempo. I don't care about time of possession. And the funny thing is, neither does Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is the originator of tempo. He's like, that was his whole thing, was he'd go fast as can be. And, if the defense is out there a lot, then who cares? But now that it's cooler outside and you don't have to worry about your defense being, like again, I know I say that, but football is way harder to play when it's like excruciatingly hot out. Like when it's 97 degrees and you're on the horseshoe field turf and it's 100 and literally, like when we played our first game in '07, the first game that we ever had artificial turf, it was 127 degrees on the turf, which sounds crazy, but they literally had the thermometer right on the turf at the Big Ten network. I mean, it was cooking. So, I mean, we were out there playing it. I was like, God, you better drink your Gatorades and mix the salt tablets and the little Gatorlight things. Cause that was like the meta, is you drink 2 of those and you'd be straight. But when it gets cold out, you can play all day. I mean, who cares, right? I mean, it's like you guys that go for jogs, like when it's colder out, it might be a little tougher on the bones when you're getting frozen, but like you can run a lot further now than when it's 100 degrees outside in the summer. No, maybe I'm wrong, but I just think that's kind of the natural part of playing sports outdoors. All right, Nevada, good show. Let's wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
No, I think I really like the way the Buckeyes are rounded into form, and like the attitude of the team, like the way that things feel. I thought helping technician made an important distinction. He talked about how the pressure kind of feels kind of off on the Buckeyes, like because people are kind of doubting him right now. And I like that position for Ohio State. I think they can sneak up on some people, and I think we're going to see a big effort on Saturday night, and I'll be there, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I think that's it's interesting because I've never felt like a more like there's like this pessimism around the team, and I'm just like, we're still one of the 4 favored teams. We're still one of the 4 clear best teams in the playoff. And this offensive line that didn't do great versus Michigan, they beat Indiana, same guys. So again, I just if we play with the guys that we can play with, we're gonna win this game, and it's not even gonna be close, I don't think. So, but again, we got to get the guys ready to go. All right. Appreciate you guys on the Sunday night and enjoying the game. I know that the Packers are kicking off. If you guys haven't figured out, Nevada is a big Packers fan. So we try to wrap this thing right as Sunday Night Football is about to kick off. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, we appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. Just an amazing run. I cannot wait to see what a home playoff game in December versus an SEC school looks like in the horseshoe. It's going to be incredible. I can't wait. We're going to have, obviously, a lot of content leading up to it. I'm super excited about it. And again, we're just going to keep rolling along. So if you guys could please give us a follow on Apple Podcasts and also on Spotify, that'd be huge for us. That's the best Christmas gift you could ever give us. Takes 5 seconds for you to do. It's completely free. And it's the biggest help ever. Leave us a 5-star review as well. Keep building this show along with us, because the Scoop family is real. And again, we just really appreciate you guys helping us out. So as always, again, this is the time of giving, the time of Christmas. This is a great time of the year, and we just appreciate you guys. Hope you guys are getting all your shopping done and having some time to listen to these episodes as you're maybe driving out to the mall or driving around and get your stuff done. So it's gonna be here soon, folks. This is like it's like a double Christmas. We get one more game in the horseshoe, then we get the actual Christmas a week later. So good little stretch here. So, but again, I just appreciate you guys so much. Love you guys to death. Again, always love you guys. Send me all kinds of great notes and great feedback. And even if the feedback is something that might be a little, not critical is not the right word, but hey, could you fix this or could you do more of this? I love the feedback. So I read every comment on YouTube. And I just appreciate all you guys that take the time to write us little notes and suggest things or thank us or whatever. It all means a lot, because again, we're trying to give you guys the best product possible. So as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation, and thank you, Scoop family. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow, 7:10. Get ready to roll into Tennessee week, but I'll see you guys tomorrow. Go Bucks.